everyone, it's Ari and welcome back to Raise Your Voice, a series where I talk about stuff going on in high-rise in hopes that all the problems I address now won't be problems in the future. Not sure if it's really working though, because it's been half a year since I started this series, and overall not much has really changed positively on a large scale. Actually, a lot of people would agree and say that high-rise has had a significant decline over the years in terms of happiness and satisfaction, but on the bright side, at least we can all agree on something for once. And speaking of agreeing on something, let's just jump right into this week's topic, which is events, namely the event boycott that happened a few weeks ago. Basically, a bunch of people, mostly from top crews and super active players, banded together and decided to boycott highrise for an entire event. The idea was that everybody would not earn a single ticket or spend a single penny on gold or boost or anything like that, in hopes that highrise would listen to our problems and finally take action to resolve issues, including bugged out rewards, lack of moderation, etc. You get the gist. Long story short, everyone was super divided on what was happening and how this would all work, because on one hand, you had people who were actually communicating with highrise and making things work, good on them, thank you, and then on the other hand, you had people who were all for it at first and then they suddenly switched up in the middle and started eventing for some reason. And then on the other hand, we have three hands, I guess, by the way, you had people who were saying that the elites were entitled and trying to control everyone and take away their freedom. Overall, it was really messy. I believe that highrise did take some action to compensate for the problems that were brought up, but ultimately, what did the boycott really do? You know, what did it really show us? Because I personally thought that it was a really good representation of how well we actually work together as a community. Let me start by saying you have to remember that highrise truly does listen to us. For example, I noticed a few changes were made to how grab contests work a little bit after my podcast episode about grab contests. They actually took specific things that we mentioned in the episode and then they made it happen on multiple occasions actually. But this didn't all happen by myself, you know, without the help of hundreds of people in the community that hyped up the series and spread the word. I don't think there would have been any way that it could have gotten the attention of highrise staff members. It's not like we're buddy-buddy on a first-name basis at first. I literally have never once talked to a staff member before I made the series. So this is where I'm going to make my first point. Don't get me wrong, you know, I think the boycott was a great idea. I agree that we deserve to have our voices be heard after so many months and years of poor customer support, unfixed glitches, all of that literally always being swept under the rug. That's literally why I made the series, to literally raise your voice. But all of us were so divided in our opinions and too busy pointing fingers at each other and attacking each other that we failed to realize how counterproductive we were being. You know, to all the people who are calling boycotters selfish and entitled, please just remember, without so many people speaking up and getting their voices heard, you would not have so many features that you now enjoy today. Highrise staff aren't the only ones who influence decisions made for the app. It's been proven that we can have a say too. But there's strength in numbers, you know? We have to work together as a community, including staff, to get things done. We don't always have to agree on the same thing, but you gotta admit, you know, when we do, we can really make some things happen. After all, did you see how quickly highrise staff worked to contact players about the boycott once it started getting some popularity? And that was all while Explore was removed, which by the way, highrise, I'm still salty with you over that. But let's move on to another aspect of events lately. I'll let today's letter explain, which by the way, I was really scared that I was gonna have to read my own letter again, seeing that there are only 2 letters submitted at the time of this recording, but this person came in clutch, so let's see what they have to say. Dear highrise, you haven't changed a thing since your player base began to grow. Out of thousands of players, how in the world do you think that it's alright to have top 10 individual player rewards? Even top 1 or top 5 crew rewards, etc. That's barely a fraction of your player base able to win these rewards, having to spend thousands of gold to get there. It's broken and it beyond angers me. Sincerely, Anonymous. Now, a lot of new players might not get this, but back in the day, it was actually really easy to get top rewards. Things were a lot less competitive back then, and you can actually place top 50 individually really easily without spending an ounce of gold. But times are changing, you know? highrise has seen a massive growth in its player base globally, and things are getting more and more competitive. And I think that's great to an extent, because now you actually have to put some more effort into eventing. Granted, this also comes with a great deal of stress and burnout, and maybe I'll address this in a future episode, but the problem is that despite this growth and increase in participation in events, highrise still retains its old event reward system that has been used for years. Like, look at it this way, right? The lowest judge reward tier goes up to 20,000 players, and top rewards go to 10 players. 10 players out of 20,000, that's 0.0005% of those 20,000 people, and that isn't even accounting for those who don't participate in events at all and just don't receive a rank. And now maybe I might be exaggerating a tiny bit because I don't have a way to specifically measure how many people participate in each event, but the point is that these top rewards are so exclusive, and I get that that's the point because you're supposed to have an incentive to rank high, but having only 10 accounts out of thousands, actually millions of registered accounts, get these rewards, I seriously think that's overkill. Remember how I said that it used to be easy to place top 50? Now the fight to get top 50 is almost equivalent to how difficult it was to place top 10 even just a year ago, if that makes sense. The dynamic in event rankings has changed so quickly among the players, but highrise hasn't done anything to accommodate for that. By using this old system, events are only in the favor of those who can afford it, which can cost hundreds of thousands of gold, and everyone else in the lower ranks are just left helpless. And then we wonder why we have such a divided player base where it's always the elites and the noobs having this and that. It's not something as we players can control. By making extremely exclusive items, you're creating an extremely exclusive community. If you expect the app to grow, you have to change it before it's too late, because so many of us are already giving up because things like this are constantly swept under the rug, and frankly, we're tired of it. Thanks for watching. I'll see you guys next week. This episode was a little longer than usual because I just had a lot to say, but still gonna keep it around 5 minutes-ish from now on. But anyway, yeah, I'll see you guys next week. Take care, raise your voice, yada yada yada.